Welcome back to Full Life Balance Financial Coaching. My name is William Wesley. I've been an investment advisor, I've been a bank branch manager, and I've been a regional investor education manager. And over the last couple of years, I've done over 2,500 coaching sessions. I've written seminars and all of that, but today we're going to do specific financial coaching around some of the key things you should be aware of. Now, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. You might have seen our first video, which talked about budget, which is the most important single thing you can do in terms of your finances. Then we covered credit, and we talked about some of the key aspects of credit. What's a FICO score and all of that. Well, today we're going to talk about debt management. Most of us need to use debt to do the things we need to do. I'm not advocating getting into debt, but reality is, in order to buy the house, buy the car, and all of that, a lot of us have to go into debt. So we're going to talk about, if you're in debt, what are some of the things you should look at? And if you're trying to get out of debt, what are some of the strategies? So, and what is debt? That is basically someone's loaned you some money, or they've loaned you capital, or they've loaned you an item that you now use, like a car, and then you pay them back for it. And of course, we have credit card debt and student loan debt and all those types of debts. So let's just walk through some of the things you can do. So let's say you are in debt. One of the first things you want to do is make sure the interest rate makes sense. And that sort of ties us back to budget, which ties us back to credit, saying the best rate I can get is based upon my credit history. So view that video if your credit history or credit score is not what you think it should be. Now, but in terms of if we are already in debt, we're trying to make sure we have first the best interest rate, secondly, the best terms. Now, let's say that debt is sort of overwhelming and we're looking at different ideas, and let's say we have some samples. So let's say we have credit cards that have 10%, 15%, and 20% interest rates. Now, sometimes this can be overwhelming having that much debt. So what do? Well, there are a number of options. So the first option in terms of debt is obviously paying it off, right? And that's not always the best option for a lot of folks because they don't have the money to pay it off. Another option, and we'll walk through about 5 key things, starting with balance transfer, then we'll talk about debt stacking and debt snowballing, then we'll talk about debt consolidation, and we'll go further down the road and talk about debt settlement, and then we'll wrap up by talking about bankruptcy, the whole scorched earth strategy, if that's the only thing you can do at this point. Okay, so again, the first thing to do, if you can pay it off, because you may be paying 15, 20% interest, and let's say your investments, like your checking account or your bank account, is getting 0.1%, or your 401k may be getting 7, 8, or 9, 10%, but if you're paying 20% interest, you're technically losing money. So, but if you can't pay it off, what's the next thing? The next thing is this concept we call debt stacking. And that's where, imagine having 3 credit cards, a 10% interest card, a 15% interest card, and a 20% interest card. And imagine stacking those up and saying, you know what? First, I'm going to go through my budget, see if I can find some extra money to throw at these credit cards. And after I comb through my budget, I find, let's say it's $200 a month. And let's say we have 3 credit cards, and let's say we've only been paying the minimum. Now, by the way, I'm not recommending you pay minimum. You should never just pay minimum, but under the strategy I'm about to share, paying minimum makes sense. So here's how it works. So we have the 3 credit cards, the 10%, the 15%, and the 20% interest card. And let's assume we're already paying $75 per card at minimum. And then we found, by combing through our budget, again, watch my first video about budget, we found, let's say, $200 extra a month by looking at some of our expenses and reducing them. So now we go after the highest interest card. That's the 20% interest card. Instead of paying just 75, we're going to keep paying 75 on the lower interest cards, but we're going to throw that extra 200 onto the 20% interest card. So now we're paying 275. And by the way, this strategy works, but it does not work if you continue to charge. And that takes us back to budget again, because if I create my budget and I live within my means, I don't have to use my credit card for monthly operational expenses. Okay, so now we're attacking the largest card with $275 a month, still servicing the others at $75 a month. And we keep knocking it down, keep knocking it down, keep knocking it down until we reduce that balance. And then we take that 275 and throw it at the 15% card, which we're already throwing 75 to. So now we're doing 350 at the 15% card. And we keep doing that until we knock that off. And now we're throwing that 350 plus the 75 that we were already paying on the 10% interest card. Again, this strategy is brilliant. It works. It reduces your interest expense, but it doesn't work if you continue to charge. Okay? So that is debt stacking. So let's say if I couldn't pay the card off immediately, I do this debt stacking idea. Some folks say, hey, William, what about this balance transfer idea? That's where you transfer the balance from the old credit card onto a new zero interest credit card. And as a concept, it works. But in reality, it doesn't for over 75% of the people who do it. Here's why. So let's say you have $13,000 on your old card, at whatever interest, and you're going to transfer it to the new card at zero interest. That makes sense, but it has a teaser period, which says zero interest for 12 months or 18 months. And at the end of that period, a lot of folks, most folks, 75% of the folks have not paid off the balance. And then it accelerates to the new rate of 19 or 29%. And for a lot of folks, they end up charging more on the old card, and they've transferred this $13,000 or whatever to the new card, and we end up in more debt after 18 months. So how does balance transfer work? Why would it be a good thing? It's only a good thing if you do the math and work it into your budget, where we take that $13,000 and we're saying it's 18 months, and we do the math and say we need to pay $800 a month. And if that works in our budget, we'll pay that $800 a month. So by the end of the teaser period of 18 months and the teaser rate of 0% interest, we're done. That's the only way it works. The other way, or the other connection is, again, we can't charge. Okay, so we've talked about debt stacking, we've talked about balance transfer, but let's say your situation is the situation where your credit is still good, and you have a relationship with an existing bank, and you go to them and say, you know what, I have these 3 credit cards, 10, 15, 20% interest. I want to get one loan where I pay them all off. That's called a debt consolidation loan. I get that loan of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8%, and I pay those guys off, which were averaging 13 or 14 to 15%. And now I have this one loan that I'm paying on, and I've paid off the credit cards. By the way, when you pay off the credit cards, as we talked about in our credit video, keep them open, because 15% of your FICO score is based on how long you've had credit. And if you close them, then it looks like you have no or very little credit. Okay, so that's balance transfer, that's debt stacking, that's debt consolidation. But let's say things have really gotten out of hand, and maybe some of your situations have now transferred to collection agencies and what have you. Well, now we're probably looking at debt settlement. Debt settlement says, I'm going to go to the person I owe the money to. Let's say I owe them $10,000, and somehow I'm able to put my hand on $3,000 or $4,000. And the person I owe the money to is now sort of out of the picture. It's actually the collection agency. And the collection agency has bought this debt from your credit card company, from Visa, American Express, or whatever, for like 30, 40 cents a dollar. So the $10,000 you owed Visa has now been bought by a collection agency for about 3 or 4 or 5,000. So they will take less than the 10,000. So what you do is, if you have the money to offset it, you offer to pay them, let's say 3,000 of the 10. And a lot of times they'll accept that offer or somewhere around there. So let's say they accept the offer. Well, now you don't owe the 10,000 anymore. But by doing a settlement and paying less than you owed, technically that Visa or MasterCard has given you that $7,000, because you've used 10, you paid 3, and at the end of the year, they're going to send you a 1099 that says you received $7,000, and you have to report that on your taxes as income. Okay, so that's debt settlement. And by the way, don't use one of these debt settlement companies, because that's just a trap. What they'll do is say, okay, we're going to talk to your creditors. You pay us some money every month, and at some point you'll have enough money, and then we'll approach your creditors. In the meantime, the creditors aren't being approached, and they keep coming after you saying, where's our money? And that could go on for 6, 8, 9, 10 months, 12 months. It goes on as long as you are still building up enough money with the debt settlement company. you can do that yourself and not spend the money there and deal with the creditors directly. I'm going to wrap up with this note, the concept called bankruptcy. So let's say things are just so bad, you have no way out, you have so much debt, and you have this income. What do you do here? Bankruptcy may be an option, right? And you can have a conversation with me and I can give you more an overview, but bankruptcy may be an option. And there are two types. One's called Chapter 7, the other's called Chapter 13. And they work pretty simple. Chapter 7 says I can put all my debt in a bag, other than school loans and a couple of other things, and I petition the bankruptcy court by going through a bankruptcy attorney. And the bankruptcy court will look at my numbers and say, okay, based on this, looks like you'll never be able to pay this off, so we're going to grant you the ability to wipe off all the debt. The judge hits the gavel, the debt's gone, and for the next 10 years, it'll stay on your credit report. Now, it doesn't mean you can't build credit back, and we can talk about that in one of our subsequent videos, but just know it eliminates the debt. But it stays on your credit report for 10 years. The other one is called Chapter 13. Chapter 13 works this way. They'll look at your assets and your income and all of that, and they'll say, okay, you owe this much in debt, and we're going to suggest a payment plan. And you have to make those payments. They'll either say 3 to 5 years, and whatever the amount is, you have to pay every single month. If you miss a payment, all bets are off. So you have to pay, and at the end of that period, they discharge the remaining debt. So therefore, now you've paid off all your debt, and that stays on your credit report for 7 years. So we've covered a lot of things in this video. We've talked about balance transfer, we've talked about debt stacking, we've talked about debt consolidation, we've talked about debt settlement, and then the scorched earth plan called bankruptcy. My name is William Wesley. This is a full life balance financial coaching minute. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to subscribe so you can get additional things from the video. Share this with your friends and family, and reach out. My name is William Wesley. You can Google me. You can reach me at william@fulllifebalance.com, and perhaps we'll talk next time about how you can get a coaching session with me directly. As always, I hope you be well, live smart, have fun, and live better every day.